Two lives lost in a devastating, brutal local crime, and almost instantly, it becomes a massive lightning rod for one of the most fiercely polarized national debates in the country right now. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to break down the exact timeline of a tragic double homicide on Long Island, New York, and we'll look at how a single press briefing ignited an absolute political war over federal immigration policy. Let's dive right in. When reporters press the commanding officer of Homicide for a motive, really trying to understand why a young man with no criminal record abruptly committed two brutal murders, this was the single word they got: anger. Just anger. It's a terrifyingly simple explanation for such a complex tragedy, right? So to really see how this raw violence blew up into a macro-level political flashpoint, we've got to trace exactly what happened.
Which brings us to part 1. A double homicide unfolds.
The events here escalated with just chaotic speed over a matter of hours. On the evening of April 30th, right around 9 p.m., the first murder happens in a shared home in Valley Stream. But, get this, the police don't even know about it yet. Fast forward just 3.5 hours to May 1st, 12:30 a.m. Cops are called to a Wendy's in North Long Beach for a person with a knife. Tragically, they find a woman fatally wounded. Then, in a completely bizarre twist, later that same night, the suspect unexpectedly flags down police in a totally different town, Lynbrook, and just turns himself in.
Let's move to part 2. The suspect and the arrest.
It's fascinating how these puzzle pieces click together in real time for the detectives. Initially, they're at the Wendy's, pulling surveillance photos, trying to ID their suspect. Suddenly, a call comes over the radio. A guy in Lynbrook just walked up to officers and flat out confessed, "I killed somebody." So detectives rush over, take one look at the guy and realize, wow, he's a dead ringer for the Wendy's surveillance footage. During his arrest, the things he says actually prompt police to do a wellness check back at his Valley Stream address. And sadly, that is exactly when they discover the first victim, who'd been killed hours earlier.
Now, when you look at the suspect's connection to these two victims, it really highlights the sheer, terrifying randomness of the whole thing. Victim 1 was a 32-year-old woman who just happened to rent a bedroom in the same house. They shared a living space, sure, but there was absolutely no known domestic relationship. Victim 2, a 42-year-old coworker of his at Wendy's and a mother to 2 young kids. Despite having totally different, really just casual connections to him, both women suffered the exact same horrific fate: fatal stab wounds to the neck and torso. Okay, so who is the suspect? His background is absolutely crucial here. His name is Rony Alvaranga, born in El Salvador. He actually entered the U.S. back in 2016 as a 12-year-old unaccompanied minor. By 2022, he had received legal status, reportedly a green card. But look at his history, or rather the lack of it. No gang affiliations, no documented mental health issues, literally 0 prior arrests. He was a complete blank slate with law enforcement. And yet, that initial entry into the U.S. as an unaccompanied minor, that becomes the exact crux of the intense political outrage that follows.
And that brings us to part 3, the political fallout.
Right after the police laid out the facts, Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman took the podium. He forcefully argued that these two women could have gone on to have very productive and happy lives, if not for what he labeled open borders. Essentially, Blakeman is arguing that the federal government's policy, allowing an unaccompanied minor into the country in the first place and later granting him legal status, represents a fatal systemic flaw. And in his view, that flaw directly resulted in this local tragedy.
Let's unpack the policy behind this in part 4, the 287G policy debate. So at the very center of this political storm is something called the 287G program. Basically, it's an agreement that deputizes local police, allowing them to cooperate directly with federal ICE agents to identify and remove undocumented individuals who commit crimes. Now here's the catch. Even though the suspect in this specific double homicide actually had legal status, Nassau County officials still used his background as an immigrant to fiercely defend their ongoing use of 287G. And they're doing this to push back against state lawmakers in Albany who are actively trying to shut the program down.
And to defend the program, they pointed to this truly staggering number, 2,000. The county executive claimed that through their 287G partnership, Nassau County has successfully removed over 2,000 illegal migrants with criminal records from the region.
And we're not talking about minor infractions here. According to the county, those 2,000 removals represent severe crimes, stuff like attempted murder, rape, assault, gang activity, and major drug dealing. During the press conference, the county executive threw a direct hypothetical question to state legislators. Basically, what would criminality look like on our streets if those 2,000 individuals were still roaming around? For local officials, this double homicide, as horrific as it is, serves as ultimate proof that abandoning 287G would be an absolute disaster for public safety.
Which leads us to our final section, Part 5, Unanswered Questions. You know, this case really perfectly encapsulates how a sudden, totally inexplicable act of violence can instantly become a political flashpoint. Think about it. Two women just going about their daily lives, sharing a house, working a shift at a fast food restaurant, brutally murdered by a young man motivated by nothing more than anger. And literally within 48 hours, their tragic deaths are thrust into the very center of a high-stakes press conference evaluating our national immigration enforcement systems and state-level legislation.
I want to leave you with this final thought. We've walked through the hard facts of the investigation, and we've seen the heated political arguments that followed immediately after. As states all across the country continue to debate the future of cooperation programs like 287G, how should local, horrific tragedies like this one actually influence the way communities partner with federal immigration enforcement? It's an incredibly heavy question, but as you can see, it's one that policymakers are being forced to answer right now.